Okay, I'm gonna try something a little bit different today. The past few videos that I've posted, I filmed myself talking. I brought that into Final Cut Pro. I edited out all the ums and the things that I missaid. And I got to this edited version of what I said, and then I said, no, that's not good enough. I don't like that. So I went back and I filmed it again, and I edited it again, and I did this a dozen times, minimum, for each video. And it's extremely time consuming, and it makes it extremely stressful for me. And honestly, I don't think it really matters in the end. If you want to listen to me talk, well, I guess you're going to listen to me talk. And so that I'm going to try something different. I'm not going to edit this down. I'm going to give you the full, uncut, this is me talking. I'm going to screw up. I'm going to say a lot. I'm going to miss some things. You may have noticed that the video itself is way longer, but that's because this video is an intro to the conversation that I had with my good friend, Jessica Borutski, who is also an extremely talented animator. I've long looked up to her work. She's always been a supporter of mine. She's just such a positive and good force in the world, and in the world of animation specifically. And I feel so lucky to call her a friend, and I got to have a nice Zoom chat with her where we talked about my show. And at that point, I guess I started realizing, because she often referred to it as a series, animated series, right? And I've been calling it a children's show. And I started to worry about the wording that I've been using. Am I calling it the wrong thing? Is it a children's show? Is it an animated series? I guess it doesn't matter. It's one of those things. It's definitely one of those things. You could call it what you like to call it. Jessica Borutski, super talented. I worked with her maybe 20 years ago at a company called Fuel Industries in Ottawa, and it was my first really fun job. And actually, I think it was my last job, the last 9 to 5 that I went to. And the one that I had before that was my first 9 to 5 job, which was for a design firm in Ottawa called Allegro 168. I had a lot of fun there. I worked there for about a year. I decided I wanted to kind of do my own thing. I traveled to the West Coast. I went back to Ottawa. I needed a new job. I found one at Fuel Industries. They hired me as a designer. I worked on web games and stuff. And but I had a lot of fun. And at that company, I met a lot of really cool people. Actually, the reason I got into photography in the first place was one of the photographers that worked there, Pascal, sold me his old Canon camera. And for a couple $100 or whatever it was at the time, and it was a kit with a lens and everything, and I started shooting. That's not the reason I got into photography, but maybe it's why I started taking photography more seriously. He was a talented photographer. I liked his work, and then he showed me, this camera, and then I bought it and I used it, and it was my first big boy digital camera that I had fun with. And ever since then, I've been a Canon guy, and that's just how you become a Canon guy, I guess. You just buy a Canon. All that being said, I met Jessica Borutski, really admired her and her work, and we stayed in touch. We probably didn't talk for 5 years, but we kept in touch, and her career just blossomed. She went from working at Fuel Industries and a small career before that as well, to getting cherry-picked by Warner Brothers, to now she works at Nickelodeon, and she's working on her own. She's producing her own show right now called Thickety Thickets, so keep an eye out for that. And she was kind enough to offer me an hour and a half of her time to talk about what goes into making a show. She basically sent me a message and said, hey, I know how to make shows. Let's talk. And I said, can I record it? And she said, yeah. And I said, okay. So we started talking, and I recorded it, and here we are. But the gist of it is that my next step is taking the script that I have and turning it into a storyboard, and then taking that storyboard and then building out the characters, and then to do the part that requires money, which is paying a lot of people to do the different aspects of it, from animating it to editing to production to sound design to music to all of that stuff. I'm going to need funding. And to get there, I'm either going to have to self-fund through a Kickstarter or something, or I'm going to have to pair up with a studio or get a grant. So these are kind of my options. But that aside, I think like my next step here is to take this script that I have and to storyboard it, which I've been working on, and to develop the character design that I want to see, which also I've been working on and I'm excited about, and bring that to like pitch quality to somewhere where I feel really confident about it, which I do, but I want to refine it a little bit more. So this video is going to be, I'm going to share my conversation with Jess, and it's a really fun one. I hope you enjoy it. And the next video I make, I'm going to share the script and kind of what went into writing the script of the pilot episode. It's the script of the pilot episode, which is like kind of, I guess you can call it a proof of concept, this pilot episode, because it's like, I don't know if it's the length that an episode is going to be. I don't know any of that, but it is going to show me whether or not this whole thing is going to work. I hope it does. And I hope you enjoy this conversation that I had with Jess. Is that Griff?
Griff, yeah, he needs to be on my lap sometimes when I'm on calls because he gets uncomfortable with the voice that's coming from the...
I just have I have a notebook with 385 questions.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I want to set the stage for who Jessica Borutski is. I really do look up to you, and I always have.
That's sweet of you.
I was looking back when I first saw I Like Pandas. That was 2006, I think.
That's about right.
19 years ago. I remember I was obsessed with I Like Pandas, and like to the point where like that, was it Plinko, the name of the band?
Clone.
That
song. So I was like, what? I would have been just 20 years old. So yeah, that song, I heard it and I just loved it. I thought it was so fun. And sometimes music like makes you want to like make something visually to it. I don't know if you've ever had that desire.
Yeah, totally.
Sounds fun. I need something to it. And I just discovered Flash. Flash was like the hot new animation tool. So I was like so excited. I had this new software and this amazing song. And I improv'd it because people were like, how'd you come up with the idea? And I was like, there was no idea, And then I was like, how do I wrap this up? And I'm like, okay, like they have suckers. They're running around like idiots. They got to choke and die. Because the song was ending. It was like a perfect storm of being young, hungry, and excited with a new tool. And I just wanted to show the world like what I had learned in college and what I was capable of doing. And I just like put it out there. And it's so funny because that film is why I'm sitting here in LA today. Yeah, it just opened a lot of doors for me. So when students ask me like, what do we do? How do we like get ourselves found out? I'm like, make short films and,
I don't know how I ended up coming across. I guess it's because we worked together.
We worked together.
I was Flash obsessed back then.
My industry was more that the software by Toon Boom was created called Harmony, and it was just better programs for animation. So, but yeah, that's kind of how I got my work noticed.
Well, still a little more about you. Like you did Bunnicula, and you have a whole resume of fun stuff.
So I worked before I Like Pandas. Like I worked at like a Flash animation studio in Halifax. So I did that. Then I worked in Ottawa. I worked on a couple, I worked on Ren and Stimpy, which was like the craziest experience. I was navigating my first job and also being hit on by my boss. So it was really intense. I actually I learned a lot from that man, but he also was very problematic. Every other job after that was like glorious. It was like, it felt like a walk in the park. So that was really refreshing to get out of that studio. And then I worked in Ottawa for a couple of years, worked for Fuel. And then I got the opportunity to move to Los Angeles through Warner Brothers to work on the new Looney Tunes show because I was asked to redesign the Looney Tunes in like 2007 and 8. And that went over really well. Somehow, the stars aligned. They loved my vision. I liked the show. I ended up from there designing, and then I started boarding, then I started directing. So by the end of that show that lasted only 3 seasons, I was directing Merry Melodies. And then I moved to LA. Then I produced Panicula.
Having all of that under your belt, from like animating to storyboarding to directing to producing, do you have like a favorite part of the process that you like to do the most?
Ooh, I love storyboarding because you're basically the director. You're everything. Like you are, when you're just like at your desk and you're storyboarding, you're figuring out every shot, every angle, what things are looking like. You have the most control. The board artist has the biggest personal mark on the episode. The director kind of fine tunes it and makes sure it's cut properly and it's timed properly and it's all working, and we'll fix little issues. But like as a storyboard artist, you really get to like make it. You get to
You're kind of writing the episode as a storyboard artist.
You are, but you're not, because you have a script.
Okay.
So the script you have beside you when you're boarding, and it's like, lines, and then they do a little description, and then, you just kind of board what you think.
Okay.
The best way to go about telling that story is. Yeah.
Okay. So it's kind of like a reinterpretation of a script. It's all kind of like different ways to look at the same story, I guess. In the end, you have the script, and then you have the storyboard, and then you have the final product, which I'm sure is different somewhat from the storyboard, taking shape more and more and more until it's the final thing.
That's the fun thing about animation. Like when you're on a crew, is that when we launch a board, I meet with the writers, the head writer, we talk about it. And it's like, you guys got it this far, and then I have suggestions, or I'll be like, oh, this sounds really kind of complicated visually. Do you mind if I do this? They'll be like, oh, yeah. Our writers are super easygoing, really lovely to work with. The way I see it on a good animation crew is that each process should bring their A game and plus it, So like we get this great script. How can we even make it better with the boards and visually? What can we add to it to make it even more fun and bring this part of the script where it gets really, let's say, scary? How can we do like really great shots to really like bring that part to life?
Yeah.
And then when the boards are done, the designers can look at the drawings of like some of these new characters and design, how can they make that design stronger, because the board artist has so much work to do, just thinking of shots and cuts and everything. They can't really do like they're not really super focused in on design, and then someone will do the designs and like plus those. With what I do, like I start with script, board process, I work with the board artist, then we have the designers come in, and then we have records that kind of comes in a bit before, depending on the schedule. Oh, and our editor, I work with the editor. So the editor gets the storyboards, times it to the audio, and I sit with the editor and we work through the timing and how everything cuts.
You're such a seasoned veteran in it all. Like you've been doing it for so long. So I'm sure your process is so fine tuned. And I was just remembering when I was staying at your place, and you're like, oh, I just have to jump in a meeting, and you're in a meeting for like an hour, and all I could hear from the room is like cartoon noises. Like afterwards, I was like, what was going on? You're like, and something more like this. You're like a funny noise. It sounded like the funnest meeting imaginable, and like this is your life.
Yeah, the job can be super fun, but like any job, like it is work.
Yeah,
like
you work at a cake factory and you get sick of cakes.
Like you remember, like I would be at my desk for a lot of the day. Like there was still like a lot of it is, grunt work of like figuring things out and noting things. But at the end of the day, it is like such a fun job. Of course, I'm not going to, and it's not.
Yeah, I mean, I get to take photos of my dogs for a living, and sometimes I'm like, oh, I have to do this today. I have to go to this farm and take photos of the dogs with pigs.
Yeah, your job's pretty damn amazing. I envy your job because your job's more adventure. Like you get to get out, you get to meet people. So, my thing with my job I don't like is that it's very isolating. And I've always felt that as an artist, like even when we were going into a studio, the grunt work is all very like by yourself at a desk. And I loved how, you get to go out. That's really cool to like meet other people. And you out in nature a lot of the time with your work.
And that's probably the most healing part for me is the nature part. Mm-hmm. I try to build into it as much as possible, as much as nature as possible. But like I tend to prefer to work alone. Mostly because of like social anxiety and how my life has been shaped by like my social anxiety. Right. So I end up I really do function the best when I'm just at home alone, and working with people is so challenging for me because my brain is like trying to figure out the social dynamics, and like if I'm asking too much from this person or if I'm like being annoying or something, it's not easy. And I think that's why like this is a big challenge for me, is because I'm going to have to trust a lot of people, because there's no way that I can go from idea to show alone. I know there's no way I can do that. So I have to find people that are like really talented and say like, hey, am I worth your time? And I can't ask people to work for free, so I have to find a lot of money. But generally, like, as I get started with this, I am a one-man show, and I do have to start doing it as lean as possible to have a proof of concept, to be able to see that it works as like an animation, and like pick a style and like, or pick an artist that I like, that could work with a style, and we could agree on something that we both like and that we're both excited about. Because you have to, like, I feel like with most creative projects, you have to have that like energy and that love for what you do to create something that's valuable. Like I like Pandas came from a place of like just pure energy and like
and playfulness. Yeah.
Wow. So what would your advice be for me as I try to piece this puzzle together as one socially anxious man in Canada trying to figure it out?
I think you have to stop worrying so much about other people's emotional states.
Yeah, always like, yeah, worried that like I'm worth their time. Because if I see someone and they're like really talented, like you right now, like even chatting with you, like the fact that we're friends makes this possible for me to like take this hour of your time and chat with you. But I'm still like, oh, like Jessica. So
No, I'm like happy to do this. Like you're very talented too, and this is very exciting. So
cool.
Shut up.
Thanks. Thanks. I'm gonna program that into my inner voice instead.
No, like, and that's why when I saw that video you posted, I sent it immediately to see at Apple Plus. She does preschool programming, because I was just like, this is such a great idea. This needs to be a show, because it just makes sense to me too. I think I even told you years ago, like you should make.
You've rallied for me to do this.
I think that you're in a good spot, because right now, what I've been told when I pitch preschool stuff that didn't really go anywhere is because they're like, we want to find, we're really into making shows from a book series. We really like a book series attached. And like, you know, your books have done really well. And it's just so, you know, they just look so aesthetically pleasing and juicy, and it's outdoors, and it looks healthy and fun and clean. And I think parents love it. Like when they see it, you know, like the dogs outside, it's just so cute. And I think that it looks like such a brand already. And I think for executives, they know that when they look at it, they thought, oh yeah, there's like something here. But like whether like, you know, looking for that kind of show, who knows? But I just thought it would be cool to like even see what she has to say about it. I really think that it does need to be a children's series. I don't know what it would look like in the end. And if you did like go the route of, let's say you started developing, I'm just talking hypothetically, you started developing with Apple Plus, let's say, it would probably be like a year or two in development of just like goofing around with people there and in the dev team, figuring out like, is this, you know, is this show 20% live action,
right,
you know, percent animated, like figuring all that out, just like figuring out like what kind of stories they are, what yeah, you know, all the stuff that you already know so much, it seemed, in your
show. You could say I'm very smart.
You're very smart.
Thank you. I do appreciate you like sharing it around to people like that, and I do appreciate that you have championed for this before, and that has been like a voice, and I think a few people have said it, and it's been a voice in the back of my head.
Yeah.
And now I'm just like, now or never.
Well, grow an empire, you know, like so. It's the same with the projects, like. At least in animation, it's like you start with like, you know, you have the book series, they develop into an animated series, and then there's the movie. They want to see like all of those things lined up,
right?
Like at the beginning deal.
Yeah.
At least that's what I've experienced. Right now, it's like a really crappy time in the animated industry. It's very quiet. I think they say 80% of the people in my industry are out of work right now. It's very slow. It's a lull. They're not picking up any shows. Many places aren't greenlighting a lot of things, but I don't know. All the development people are still working, but nothing's apparently being greenlit because none of my friends are getting new jobs. So I don't know what's going on there. I don't have an answer for that. But that doesn't mean that, you don't start developing now, because things could change in a heartbeat. I would love to actually share this idea of yours with the people at Wild Brain, because we got funding 50% from Wild Brain and 50% from the Canadian Media Fund. This is a Canadian production. And I think they would absolutely love this concept of like find Yaya and Boo. We're kind of preschool. We're called Bridge. There's preschool and there's Bridge. Bridge is a little bit older preschool, before 6 to 11. Yours, I think, is preschool, right?
Yeah. Because my books are like 2 to 5 or like 1 to 4-ish. And I think that would be a good guess.
All the little stubby fingers pointing at the books.
Yeah.
Cute.
I want to get your input on this, because this is a big question mark for me as I move forward, like how to go from a photography-based book series to an animated style, because there's no way that I can get the dogs on screen. I mean, I wouldn't want to put them through that, because I think it'd be stressful for them. but like, yeah, what is your like immediate reaction to that? Like, do you have any
part of it really feels like I want to see live action, but that could be because I'm just attached to the aesthetic of your books.
I don't know, what I see automatically is like live action backgrounds. Do you remember The Amazing World of Gumball?
Yeah.
Something like that, like live action backgrounds and like moving, and then animated dogs. In what style, I do not know, but
the style of your Momo book.
Yeah, something similar to that, I think.
I think that's already figured out, to be fully honest.
Well, how do I go about that then? If I'm like, this is the style that I'm aiming for, do I find an artist that could match that style, or do I work with an artist to kind of find the happy medium between kind of their
So what you would do is, so people that work in animation are trained to recreate a style. Like, you've seen it, I'm sure. Like, remember Franklin the Turtle? And they made like an animated series in the 90s, Franklin the Turtle.
Well, yeah, I do.
Stuff like this exists. It's very simple. Us animators, like I said, we're trained to recreate a style that exists. So
find Momo everywhere, yeah.
Everywhere. So that's like a beautiful aesthetic already. I would not overthink it. Maybe you want to fine tune it a little bit for animation, but someone could come in like a designer and lay out, let's say the first character's Momo, lay out Momo, profile, 3/4 front, side, and you approve it. Like, you make sure it's everything you want. You're the visionary, and people are just creating it for you. So they would create what this looks like animated. You can recreate that style of your book animated, would work completely fine, is what I'm trying to say. People could support that and make sure that it's fully realized in that style.
Like, how do I get this into development? How do I get this rolling? What is the solution? Turn the key for me. Give me I want an easy way to do it. Just kidding. I know nothing good is easy.
Oh, I don't think there's like one way of doing things. There's this, self-producing. So you get funding in any way you can, whether it's like through the Canadian Media Fund, whether it's like a GoFundMe type thing, whether it's money you have, whether it's you find people like young, hungry artists that just want to make something, work they can do for free to put in their portfolio or something. I don't know. Or there's the studio route where, like, me and I know people and I can get your name and you can just submit meetings and you'll have Zoom calls with like executives in development and share what you have to do. And then they decide whether they want to work with you on a series. There's that route too. There's no like way. I met the creator of Paw Patrol. I forget his name. I met him at kids screen and I didn't know what to say. I was just like, wow, congratulations on the how did you come up with dogs and rescue vehicles?
You said that.
Yeah, and I was like, it's just so random. And like, whoever thought, like, how did that feel? Like, I just didn't even know. I wanted to know, like, what does it feel to like, a concept become an empire? Like, what is that like? He was British guy. He's like, oh yeah, it was, it was a pitch. There was a few other pitches, and one of them was dogs in space, but this one felt better. And I'm like, yeah, way better than dogs in space. But
That's interesting. I like the humility of a creator who looks back and says like, yeah, we lucked out. Rather than someone says like, oh, I knew exactly what I was doing, where I was going. Because I think that's rarely the case, that somebody draws a path and follows it exactly and says, there it is, success at the end of the road, just like I planned. I think most of the time it's like rolling the dice and like, let's try this one, maybe this one will work.
Well, it's usually just artists that have a character, like in my industry, like when I think of, like, let's say SpongeBob, which is an empire. He's Mickey Mouse of Nickelodeon, and that was just a guy, Steven Hillenburg, who was obsessed with sea creatures, and he thought sponges were so strange, and he just loved the idea of like, what if that was like the star of a weird underwater show, and he was like a surfer, so he just like, and like that's just from pure having fun with like some characters, and then he probably did not see that coming.
And then, like, I guess that's it. There's no one way to get there. You just gotta play the cards you have, but also like allow the excitement within you to fuel something, because I think that's
that's the main thing, is whether something sticks in the culture. No one can even predict what that is.
No.
How would anyone know? Like,
and you can't do it in the, like, you can hope for that, but you can't do it with that as your finish line. No. I think you have to do it with the very real possibility that this may be just like a fun little project that you do in your life.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing. Like, what I always notice, the stuff that made me excited while making it usually is what hits with people. It's making you excited and thrilled to create it, and you feel like you just have to get it out, and it's so exciting. People usually pick up on that. That's kind of a no-fail way of doing everything, I think, and then hope that other people like it too.
Yeah. I guess on the subject of like excitement, and like me taking my dogs and turning them into something potentially exciting. How has Griff inspired your work, or has he?
Griff? I don't know if he showed up in a kid's book I made, like a self-published kid's book. Where did he go? Grifford? I hear him breathing. That's the weird thing. Oh, there he is. So Griff, he's like with me all the time while I work. Like, he's on my lap and records. And I think he's just like a soothing energy that just kind of like I work with. But I've drawn him quite a few times.
Okay. Any other tips for me before we wrap this up? Or anything else you want to plug? You want to plug so that the 14 people that watch this can check it out?
I don't really have anything I want to plug. I don't know. My advice to you is I think you're doing it right. I think the idea of like making the video is really cool, like as like a process that people can be a part of. I think that's really, really great idea. I think a good step for you would just be, because do you have a plan for funding yet?
Nope. And I got no money.
It might be good if you're interested in learning how to apply for funding to like the Canadian Media Fund. Like if you could do something like we did with Thickety, where you have a production company that does, support they bring in the other half of the funding. That could be a really cool way of doing it. But it's also cool, like with Wildbrain, like we're only really working with like 2 executives. That's it at this. Like everything else is kind of like just me and Juan, and then we hired a couple animators and stuff, and board artists, but I do a lot of the visuals. It's hard to give advice because there's just so many ways to do it, and there's not a right or wrong way. And I feel like you have a lot of skills that I don't have with like, the type of social media stuff you do, and you have a really big presence. And with books, the like publishing companies, do they ever, I guess it's not in any of their interest, but I was going to say, like, do they ever shop their people like you around to networks? Because that would only benefit them, really.
Yeah, I mean, it would benefit them. Oh my God, there's this cloud that looks like a perfect wave. I have to take a photo of this.
Wave?
Someone, look at this.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's really cool.
I've heard like people's literary agents kind of like setting them up on a path for success for that kind of thing.
Have a
Um,
literary.
I have a literary agent. I mean, she's suggested it, but I mean, I have no idea where to go. So this is like, well, I don't know what to do. So why don't I just start and see where it takes me and hope I could find the pieces along the way. And like already, I wouldn't have had this conversation with you if it wasn't for sharing that.
No, I think that you have something like you've built this really great, IP as they call it. You have a good IP. You're like,
Wait, intellectual property, internet presence.
that's the one thing, like when I pitched my preschool shows, I didn't have, so they weren't interested. So I
Right.
think the fact
The
that you
deliver
have
numbers.
that, when I saw you saying what you want to do, I'm like, I saw your video and I went, he's going to get this. And it's whether you're interested in working with studios. I don't know if
Absolutely. Like I know that there's like no right way to get there or no best way to get there. That would be a dream. The studio direction, production company direction is I think a really good way to go because of the talent that it comes with.
but you just have such a like delicious little like world you've created with the dogs. And I just think that
Yeah.
you expanded on, to a formula, whether it is just because a lot of stuff now they just want to make web series. Is a little web series I think would be perfect. Do you want me to reach out to a couple other people, or do you just
I mean, yeah, I've been afraid that it's like too soon to like it's not developed enough to even like be able to talk about it with anyone serious.
this is actually a really good point you're bringing up. Where are you in development? What I watched in the video, you're just kind of throwing out ideas.
I have a script. I have like a pilot episode kind of. I have half of the script written of the pilot episode, and I'm like I think what I want to do and what I've been working on, what I feel like the right direction is to like write a few episodes to make sure that it's an idea that sticks and that the pilot can lead into other episodes. Like,
You don't need, you already have enough. You have your book, which says everything. You have your one liner of what it is. That's the main thing they're looking for, a concept. They're looking for you have the book, if you do a pilot script and then you have the rundown of the characters, that's all you need for one meeting. From that, they will be there to say, Andrew, we want to hear more, or Andrew, we might not want to take this on. It's not what we're looking for right now. It's either going to be one or two of those answers. You have more than enough to go into a meeting. I've gone into meetings with as much or less than what you
okay.
have.
That's good to hear. Can I tell you the rough idea for my pilot episode?
Yeah, yeah. But it really, like, I find the animation things really kind of evolve over time, and
Yeah.
I'm sure that process with your books too.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
making a book is not that different than like a storyboard. I don't think.
I have storyboarded books, so
Yeah, so
with rudimentary drawing skills. Okay, well, look, I don't want to take up your entire day.
I think that if you're up for it, getting in some meetings with some development people would be very helpful, because sometimes they just give you little words of wisdom in their meetings too that kind of inspire different ideas. I've had meetings with executives, like I had one at Disney, and he was just throwing out all these ideas of how it could be stronger, and I was like, yeah, thank you. I was like writing them all down. You never know what's going to happen from a meeting.
Yeah.
And if you work with a studio like Apple Plus, they're going to let you as much as they can. Like, they like the creator, they want your vision, that you will have final say on everything. But here is the thing: some things will have to have a bit of wiggle room, and you just have to kind of accept it. And everyone has their, I guess, how far they can be pushed to, change a little bit of a vision. But at the end of the day, your vision's very clear already. Like, if I was in development, I would probably be able to, I wouldn't change too much on what you're going. I mean, you have to like refigure it to be like a whole series, but the core vision, as long as like for you, like your job once it's in production, let's say, would be to make sure that the vision is never gone. Like it still has to feel like your books. It still has to have that essence. And that'll be really fun for you. Because everyone's looking to you as like that beacon to keep that spirit of what the books are into the animated series. And if that's interesting to you and you like that idea, then I think you're gonna really enjoy making a series. But there are times where, like, you know, they will ask you to do things like maybe they're going to say maybe you need to add a female character because they're two boys. So you have to add Priscilla Poodle, who lives down the street. That'll probably happen, you know, like stuff. And sometimes you got to let them do their thing so that, like, you know, you can keep other parts of it the way you want it. But it is a dance, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And it should be, I think. I mean, to a point, but I think that makes total sense. And it's, I think, part of the excitement. Like, imagine that's at this point in development where you're like, oh, I just have an idea. Imagining something like that, you're like, oh, that would be a good problem to have. What else are you working on? Thickety Thicket?
Thickety Thicket and Loud House still. Loud House is my bread and butter. Like, that job is amazing. And then I'm hoping that, like, we get one more season of Loud House, so it has 10 seasons, and then that wraps up as, like, Thickety Thicket starts to, like, take off. That's, like, my dream. I recently went to Warner Brothers and I pitched this, like, movie idea I feel very strongly about, and they haven't gotten back to me yet, but kind of hoping that could be something. So I don't know. I'm always trying to get something off the ground because.
Hey, well, thanks so much for hanging out and doing this. It's good to see you, and I miss you.
You too. I miss you too. I'll
talk soon.
Bye.
Bye. Wow. What a conversation that I had with Jessica Borutski. That was really fun, wasn't it? Didn't you enjoy that? I did. No, truly, I really did. I enjoyed talking with her. The last time I saw her, actually 2 summers ago, I was traveling in my van and I camped out in her driveway it had to be a couple of weeks. I think it was on and off a few weeks, and I would hang out with her and her son, and it was just so fun. And I literally lived in her driveway and in my, like, camper van, which was really great and really fun. And, like, man, I'm so grateful that she let me kind of hang out there and use her driveway. We got to hang out more than we ever had in that little moment. But it was a really special moment for me. Oh my God, I wanted to talk about the earthquake that I felt, which has nothing to do with anything. And it's weird that I'm placing this at the end of the video, but like I said, I'm not editing this. You're getting what you get. So, was it 2 days ago? I was sitting on my couch with my friend, and the dogs were just kind of like being dogs. And we got an earthquake. It was a 5 point something. Nobody knows. It keeps changing. I think there was like 2 or 3 earthquakes. But I never felt an earthquake like this before. I felt small rumbles, and I grew up in a mining town where we had blasts in the mines, and there was a common thing that they would blast in the mines, and so you'd hear a rumble. But this was it was the most intense force of nature that I have ever felt. And it was only a 5.1. I can't imagine it being like a 6. That's 10 times bigger, or anything bigger than that. That'd be insane, because I thought it was the end of the world. And the entire, like, everything shook. It felt like a blast so ominous that it was like a million fireworks. It just felt like something so ominous and big and strong and powerful. I felt so small in that moment. And then the dogs were all kind of riled up. And then I was like, what do we do? What is going on? And then I grabbed a bag and I was about to put a bunch of soup in it. And then I checked my phone and it said there was an earthquake. I said, okay, I guess that's all it is. And, like, nothing has changed. There's no damage. Nothing really happened, but it was just a giant blast. And I think one of my favorite things about things like that is, like, when you go out into public after something like that, and that's all everyone is talking about. And I kind of love that, like, talking about a natural event, like whether it's the weather or in this case an earthquake. You're just like, where were you? What did you do? What did you think it was? I thought it was a truck driving into my house. I thought it was like a boat crashing into the shore. It is just such an interesting social experiment or social reality. Anyways, that's my earthquake story. What's your earthquake story? And as I get into the next steps of this animated series, let me know what you thought of the conversation that I had with Jess, if you listened to it, and what you want to see next. And once again, thank you for being here. I want to also say thanks for all the feedback that I got on the original video I posted a few weeks ago. The support, thank you. That means so much to me that you guys wanted to support me. A lot of you said, I want to support you, but I don't know how. Well, that's perfect. Like your comment is supporting me. You're sharing this, like anything you can do like that to get the word out, because you don't know who's going to hear it. You know, I shared that video and then Jess reached out to me and then I got to have this amazing conversation that's kind of carrying me to the next place. And that's, I think, why I like the chaos of the internet, is you don't know what you're going to get out of it. You just kind of express something, share something, and because you did that, now it's in the ether, now you're talking about it. Even just now, I was walking in the forest, I ran into my friend Tina, and she had mentioned a local who I was thinking about chatting with, who's an animator, and I could chat with this person and, you know, see where that goes. You just don't know. You just don't know. But in talking about the things that we want to do, see, I'm not a big believer in manifestation, but I believe in it in a sense that if you are speaking about a thing, if you're talking about it outwardly into the world, then you will start to connect the pieces that you wouldn't have seen otherwise. And I think that makes it worth talking about the things you want to do. And probably a reason why talking about the difficulties in your life, though it is important to get them out and to vent and to have a place to safely express the challenges in your life, depending on how big they are, I think over talking about the challenges in your life could be something that stagnates a person, something that stops progress. That's just a little aside. So talk about the things that you love with the people that you love, or with the random people that you meet on trails. And I will see you next time. I'm gonna try to get a video out next week with the script. This is a 2-week break from the last video, but I'm gonna try to get this a little bit more, on schedule. Maybe you can expect a video every Monday. Maybe you can't. I don't know. I'm gonna try for that though. And I'll also be starting to put a lot of work into my next books that I'm working on, so that's gonna be taking a lot of my time. But my life this year is Yaya and Boo, like literally the dogs, and the intellectual property, I guess we'll call it, of the concept of Yaya and Boo. So stay tuned. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you, and I will see you next time.